Last month at a remote mountain base, we received rules to follow that still confound us. I was there as part of a government project studying climate change. My name is Eric, and I'm a 34-year-old environmental scientist. I thought I could collect valuable data before winter kicked in. When I arrived at the base, everything looked stark. There were metal buildings, flags flapping in the cold wind, and towering mountains all around. It felt scary silent, but I brushed it off. I figured that's what happens in a remote place. I settled in with my teammates. We began to set up the equipment and start our work. That evening, I saw a hastily typed list on the wall in the common room. It was labeled "Rules to Follow." It struck me as odd, but I ignored it and focused on my day entry. The first few days were uneventful, mostly. I worked hard during the day, feeling good about the project. But at night, things changed. I started to hear strange noises. Footsteps echoed down the empty halls, but there was no one around. My equipment began acting up too. I thought it was just fatigue, but deep down, I knew it felt different. I kept glancing at the rules, my curiosity growing. They were unsettling. Do not go outside at night. Do not speak of what you hear. Obey without question. I wondered why I hadn't noticed how creepy they were before. One night, during a check on the equipment, I heard a whisper. I turned around quickly, heart racing. There was nothing there. I told myself it was just my imagination, but anxiety knotted up inside me. I started asking my teammates about the noises. They looked nervous, exchanging uneasy glances. Their silence made me feel more afraid. As days passed, equipment began to go missing. Tools vanished from the lab, and no one could explain it. Shadows stretched unnaturally under the dim lights. I found myself staring at that list of rules again, feeling the weight of their meaning. Midweek, I decided to step outside for fresh air. It was freezing, but I lingered under the stars. They were beautiful, yet overwhelming. The night was heavy with silence. I heard the whisper again, clear this time. I felt a chill run through me, and I rushed inside, panic setting in. I confronted my teammates the next day. They looked scared, avoiding my eyes. Just as I was about to press for answers, one of them whispered, "We need to follow the rules." That made me even more afraid. On my last day there, I felt a presence behind me. I turned quickly, my heart pounding. There was no one. I looked back at the rules, and they felt like a warning now. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was deeply wrong. Was I losing my mind? Or was it the rules that were truly binding me? I had never felt fear like this before. I still can't escape it. What happened to my team? What did those rules mean? Out here in the quiet mountains, I still hear that whispering whenever I close my eyes. The next day, I woke up feeling restless. I needed to do something. The rules were suffocating, and the fear was palpable among my teammates. I decided it was time to confront the chilling list on the wall yet again. The words seemed to stare back at me, haunting and relentless. As I stood there, bizarre thoughts raced through my mind. What if the rules were not just guidelines, but warnings? Was there something they weren't telling us? With everything I had experienced, I felt like I had to take action. I gathered my team in the common room. If they didn't want to talk about the noises, maybe they'd talk about the missing equipment. I faced them head on. What's going on? We can't keep pretending everything's fine. Tools are disappearing, and we hear whispers at night. Something is wrong here. Their eyes widened, and for a moment, I thought I might have broken through their silence. "It's not safe to discuss it," one of them finally said, his voice barely above a whisper. "You don't understand." "Understand what?" I pressed, impatient. "What are we supposed to be afraid of?" "We can't go against the rules," another teammate chimed in, panic lacing her voice. "You don't want to know what happens if we do." Frustrated, I staggered back. "Then tell me what it is. Why are you all scared?" But the room fell silent, and I felt like I was banging my head against a metal wall. They were too hesitant to speak, too bound by some unseen force. I turned away, determined to uncover answers on my own.
Later, I went to the lab and began searching for any clues. I rummaged through drawers and cabinets, desperate to find anything that would make sense of our situation. That's when I discovered a hidden compartment beneath a workbench. It was small, dusty, and almost missed in the dim light. I pulled it open, heart pounding. Inside lay a collection of old documents and photographs. They were grainy, but I could make out images of past teams that looked eerily similar to mine. But what stunned me the most were the handwritten notes that accompanied them. They detailed conversations about strange occurrences, shadows that moved on their own, and voices that spoke in the dark. One phrase sent chills up my spine. Never question the rules. They are our protection. My breath quickened. Could it be that these were warnings from a previous team? Were they trying to protect us from something sinister? Suddenly, I felt the weight of eyes on me. I turned and saw a figure standing in the doorway. Eric, it was one of my teammates, face pale. You shouldn't be reading that. My heart sank. Why not? Just then, the lights flickered and went out, plunging us
into darkness. I could hear my heartbeat in my ears, and then a whisper, the same one I'd been hearing since I arrived. This time, it seemed louder, insistent. Obey without question. The voice wrapped around me like a cold shroud. I stepped backward, the documents slipping from my hands and scattering onto the cold floor. I was trapped in a web of fear and confusion. What had I stumbled into? Then everything went dark. I jolted awake in my bed, gasping for air, my heart racing. The darkness around me felt suffocating, and I struggled to remember what had happened. The whispers were gone, but the fear clung to me. I was still in the base, still under its oppressive rules. I sat up and glanced at the clock. Hours had passed since I'd stumbled into that hidden compartment. I made my way to the common room, each step echoing in the silence. When I entered, I found my teammates huddled together, their faces drawn and tight. They had been waiting for me. "Eric," one said, her voice trembling, "you shouldn't have looked into it. You've stirred something up." "What do you mean?" I asked, anxiety bubbling in my stomach. Before anyone could reply, the lights flickered again, casting long shadows on the walls. I could sense the tension in the room, a palpable fear that had seeped into every crevice. "We need to leave," another teammate urged, his voice rising, "before it finds you." "Finds me?" I echoed, confusion swirling in my mind. "What are you all talking about?" "It's not just the rules," he replied, shaking his head. "There's something here, something that watches." My skin prickled at the thought. Questions flooded my mind. What had I done? Had I really awakened something? "Look, I found those notes," I said, desperate for clarity. "They warned about the darkness, but if we can find out why, we might—" "Stop!" the first teammate shouted, her hands covering her ears. "You don't understand. You'll regret it." Suddenly, a loud bang echoed through the base. Everyone jumped, and the lights flickered another time before plunging us back into darkness. Panic gripped me as I felt my way to the nearest wall, my breath hitching in my throat. "Eric," someone whispered, but I couldn't tell who it was. "The rules exist for a reason. We've lost teammates before. No one comes back." Then a low growl resonated in the shadows, followed by an unsettling silence that stretched thick around us. I could feel a heaviness in the air, something dark crawling just out of sight. "Stay close," I instructed, even as fear laced my voice. "We need to stick together." But then the whispers returned, filling the silence between us, wrapping closer like a rope around my throat. "You know the rules. Obey. Obey." Just as I was about to scream, the lights burst back on, revealing the common room in disarray. Papers were scattered everywhere, and one of the photos from the hidden compartment lay on the floor. I flicked it over, breath catching in my throat. It was a picture of a past team, but something stood in the back. An indistinct figure, its face obscured, but undeniably watching. That's when I saw it, I whispered, realization crashing over me. What? A teammate asked, fear in their eyes. It's been here all along. And then I heard it again, this time clearer. Obey without question. The air felt electric, and I suddenly understood that our time was running out. My mind raced as I stared at the photo, the chill creeping down my spine. The figure loomed in the background, almost a shadow among shadows, but its presence was undeniable. Someone had witnessed it before, and now I had too. "What are we going to do?" one teammate asked, her face pale under the fluorescent lights. "We can't just ignore this." "We don't have a choice," another team member replied, shaking his head. "We've been warned. Whatever it is, it wants Eric." A knot tightened in my stomach. I clenched my fists, trying to push away the fear. "We need to figure out how to stop it," I insisted, even as doubt gnawed at me. "It's connected to those notes. What else did they say?" But before anyone could respond, the lights began to flicker again, the hum of power wavering like a heartbeat. I felt the air shift, the temperature dropped, and for a moment I could almost see my breath. Then the sound came, like a low chant, a whispering cacophony of voices rising from the depths of the base. It was a haunting chorus, echoing my own name. Eric, Eric, obey. To my horror, my teammates pressed their hands to their ears, cringing. "Make it stop," one yelled, panic rising in her voice. "No, focus," I shouted, trying to drown out the noise. "We need to stay together." Suddenly, the lights went out completely, leaving us in a pitch-black void. My heart thudded in my chest as I grabbed for the nearest person, my fingers brushing against someone's arm. "I can't see," another teammate cried out, fear breaking her voice. "Just hold on," I stammered. I felt the walls closing in on us, each breath heavier than the last. Then, with a snap, the emergency lights flickered on, casting an eerie glow over the room. I noticed something new, a crack in the wall just behind the couch. It looked different now, as if it had been there all along but was hidden from our sight. "What's that?" someone pointed, and I stepped forward, drawn to it. The whispers faded, replaced by an unsettling silence. I glanced back at my teammates. Their faces were a mix of confusion and terror, but I was gripped by an urge to investigate. I reached out, my fingers grazing the crack. It was cold to the touch, almost alive. Pushing it slightly, I felt a shift. The crack widened just enough to reveal something. A small book. Tucked inside. "Eric, don't!" a voice warned behind me, but my curiosity overcame my fear. I pulled it free, dust swirling in the dim light as I opened it. The pages were worn, filled with strange diagrams and notes about the Watcher. My heart raced again as I scanned a sentence. "It feeds on fear, and those who disobey become part of it." I froze, the weight of the words crashing into me. It feeds on fear. Before I could ponder this further, a chilling laugh echoed through the common room, bone-chilling and full of malice. The hairs on my arms stood on end. "Who's there?" I shouted, my voice trembling. And then a sudden movement in the shadows. I caught a glimpse of that figure, the one from the photograph. It loomed larger now, and I felt its gaze burning into me. My breath caught in my throat. Whatever it was near. "Run!" I yelled. But as we turned to escape, the lights went out again. This time, I knew we weren't alone. The darkness enveloped us like a thick fog. I could hear the panicked breaths of my teammates as they stumbled in the pitch black, a cacophony of fear. I grabbed the nearest hand, not even sure who it belonged to. "Stay close," I called. My voice felt small against the overwhelming silence.
Then, a guttural voice sliced through the air, low and sinister. "Obey." It echoed from all directions, making it impossible to pinpoint its source. I could feel it vibrating in my chest. In a surge of adrenaline, I took a step forward, my instincts screaming for me to flee. "This way," I urged, pulling my companions toward the emergency exit, hoping to find safety beyond those doors. But as I moved, the emergency lights flickered back on. The figure I had glimpsed moments before was now standing clearly before us. It was tall, its features distorted and obscured, casting a long shadow across the floor. My heart pounded in my ears. "Eric," it whispered again, dragging my name into a slithery drawl. Panic surged as I resisted the compulsion to answer back. "We have to split up," I shouted, desperate to break the grip of whatever this was. "It can't follow all of us." "Are you crazy?" a teammate yelled, backing away from the figure. "We can't—" I didn't wait for them to finish. I let go of the hand I was holding and sprinted toward the adjacent room, the weight of heavy footsteps on the wooden floor echoing behind me. My breath came in short gasps, but I couldn't slow down. I couldn't let it catch me. I burst into the next room, slamming the door shut behind me and locking it. A quick glance around revealed it was filled with dusty crates and old equipment, remnants of research long abandoned. My heart raced as I tried to formulate a plan. That's when I noticed it. On the far wall, there was a small window. The view beyond it was only darkness, but it offered a glimmer of hope. Just as I turned to make my way across the room, I heard the door rattle. A sense of urgency flooded through me. "Eric!" someone on the other side shouted. It was my friend Clara. "Let us in!" My mind raced. Did I trust the sound of her voice? Or was that just another trap? The rattling intensified, then stopped. I could hear it, footsteps approaching the door. The figure was closing in. "Stay back!" I yelled, my voice shaking. I knew I had only seconds to decide. I needed to find out more about that book and what this creature wanted. "Clara, I can't!" I called out as I scrambled to the wall, my fingers tracing the strange symbols that covered it. Something felt wrong, and yet something felt compelling. Was there a way to use this to fight back? Before I could process anything further, the door splintered under the weight of something heavy. I turned just in time to see the dark shape starting to push through. I took a deep breath and screamed, "Get away from me!" As I stepped backward, my foot caught on an uneven crate, and I fell. The ground felt like it was shifting beneath me. Then I saw it, a series of symbols glowing faintly on the dusty floor. I didn't know what it meant, but it pulsed with energy. Then everything went dark again. I woke up on the cold, hard floor, gasping for breath. My heart thudded in my chest, loud and frantic, as if it wanted to break free. The darkness had swallowed everything again. But now there was something different. A flicker of light caught my eye, cutting through the black like a knife. I sat up, confusion swirling around me, and saw the glowing symbols pulsing on the floor. They danced like fireflies, casting an otherworldly glow that illuminated the edges of the room. I scrambled closer, my knees scraping against the rough ground. The symbols formed a complex pattern, each one radiating an energy that felt almost alive. My fear edged into curiosity. What if I could decipher them? What if they held some sort of power? Suddenly, the door buckled with a force that echoed through the room. I flinched back, the symbol shimmering in response to the noise. I had only moments before whatever was on the other side broke in. I glanced around the room, searching for anything I could use to defend myself or escape. A steel rod lay discarded beside a wooden crate, half buried under dust. I grabbed it, feeling its weight in my hand. It wouldn't be much against whatever was coming, but it was better than nothing. The door splintered again, the frame shaking violently. I could hear Clara's voice muffled through the wood, desperate and lost. "Eric, please open the door!" I hesitated. I needed to make a decision. This easily be some trick,
another way for the figure to lure me into its grasp. But that thought clawed at me. What if Clara was really there? The symbols glowed brighter, pulsing with urgency, and I felt an overwhelming pull toward them. "Clara!" I shouted back, filled with uncertainty. "Can you break it down?" "I don't know. We need to get out." My heart sank at the hopelessness in her voice. I had to do something. With every ounce of courage, I pressed my fingers down onto the glowing symbols. They felt warm beneath my touch, vibrating slightly, as if they were responding to my fear. My head swam with confusion, but I focused. I needed to understand. I pictured the figure, its shadow looming earlier, and forced every ounce of defiance I had into my thoughts. "You won't take us," I whispered. "We won't obey." Then, suddenly, a sharp jolt broke through the air. The room vibrated, and the symbols blazed with intensity. A low rumble surrounded me, almost familiar, like the voice I had heard before. Was I tapping into something? The door finally gave way, crashing open as Clara stumbled through, panting and wide-eyed. "Eric!" she gasped, eyes darting around the room. "What did you do?" Before I could answer, a wave of shadows rushed in, thick and dark, filling the doorway. The figure loomed once more, a twisted form melded into the darkness. "Join us," it hissed, voice slithering like a snake. I tightened my grip on the rod, readying myself. But the symbols beneath me flared brighter. They felt alive, urging me forward. I didn't know what they would do, but I had to hold my ground. "Stay back!" I yelled, positioning myself between Clara and the advancing shadows. But that wasn't just a threat, it was a challenge, and I felt the weight of something shifting in that moment. Then, just as everything felt about to collapse, I heard a sound, something I'd never expected in this nightmare. An ancient whisper rose from the glowing floor, wrapping around me, drowning out the echoes of darkness. "Fight," it urged, and in that instant I realized I had a choice to make. I took a deep breath, the warmth of the symbols seeping into my skin, grounding me. "Fight," I whispered, echoing the voice that had urged me. I was not just a victim. I had power hidden in this chaos. The figure leered at us, its shadowy form shifting, twisting like smoke in the air. Clara stood beside me, fear etched on her face, but there was also something else, her determination. "What do we do?" she asked, her voice steady but tinged with urgency. "I think these symbols want us to resist," I replied, feeling a surge of adrenaline. My fingers brushed the glowing symbols again, and the energy surged through me. It was a strange feeling, like something was awakening. "Do you think we can use them against the shadow?" Clara's eyes darted back to the door, where the figure was now coiling and expanding, testing the boundaries of its prison. Before I could respond, the ground shuddered beneath my feet. The symbols glowed brighter, and I instinctively raised the steel rod, defiant against the menacing presence. Clara mirrored my stance, a flame igniting in her eyes. "Join us," the figure hissed again, but this time it didn't rattle me. Instead, I felt the strength of the symbols pouring through me, blending with my resolve. "We won't!" With that declaration, I thrust the steel rod forward. It felt as if I was launching a spear into the darkness itself. The moment it pierced the shadow, the air crackled with energy. A flash erupted, illuminating the entire room in blinding light. As the glow enveloped us, the figure recoiled as if struck by an unseen force. Clara gasped beside me, her grip tightening on my arm. "What's happening?" "I don't know," I shouted over the rising roar. But I could feel it, something shifting. The shadows writhed, the symbols pulsed in a furious rhythm, matching the beat of my heart. Then it struck me, a realization as bright as the light. "We need to work together," I said, my voice steadier now. "The symbols need us. Let's channel our energy into them."
Without hesitation, Clara nodded, gripping my hand tighter. "Against the darkness," I yelled, pouring everything I felt into the pulsating light. Suddenly, the symbols exploded with vibrant energy, flaring in colors I had never seen. The light intensified, shooting out toward the figure, clashing against the shadows in a storm of blinding brilliance. A screech pierced the air, one I had never heard before, filled with rage and shock as the shadow recoiled, pulling back like a wounded animal. There was a moment, a brief, fragile moment, when everything hung suspended, and I feared we'd unleashed something beyond our control. Then the ground beneath us quaked violently, and the cymbals cracked from the pressure, bellowing a sound like thunder. I felt Clara's hand slip from mine as the force knocked us apart. "Clara!" I yelled, scrambling to regain my footing as the shadows lunged forward once more. She vanished from my sight. Panic surged through me. I had to find her. That's when I saw it, a dark shape emerging from the shadows, something distinct among the chaos. A hand, reaching. But was it Clara's? The darkness began to swirl again, thick, suffocating. "Clara!" I screamed again, desperation clawing at my throat. I needed to fight. But the symbols were fading, their light dimming as the figure's growls echoed intimately in my ear. Then everything went dark. I gasped as consciousness came rushing back, startling me awake. I lay flat on my back, the cool ground beneath me a stark contrast to the chaos I had just experienced. A dull ache throbbed at the back of my head. I tried to sit up, but dizziness swept over me, pulling me back down. "Clara?" I croaked, my voice barely above a whisper. No response, just silence wrapped around me, thick and heavy. I pushed myself up slowly, using my hands to brace against the earth. My heart raced as I scanned the area, but I was alone. The room we had been in was gone. I was in a small, dark cave, flickering shadows dancing along the damp walls from a distant light. "Where am I?" I muttered, my voice shaking. I recalled the figure, the symbols, Clara's hand slipping away. Panic rose again, but I shoved it down. I needed to think. A flicker of light caught my eye. It came from a series of objects scattered on the ground, a cluster of symbols similar to those I had touched before. My breaths came fast as I scrambled over, reaching out to them. They were cold, lifeless. "Focus," I urged myself. I remembered the energy, the colors. They had been alive. As I held the symbols, I recalled something Clara had said about using them against the shadow. But how? Maybe I could try to bring them back to life, summon that power again. I closed my eyes, willing my thoughts to center. "Fight," I whispered, recalling our shared moment. I felt a twinge of warmth in my palms. Suddenly, the shadows deepened, swirling around me. A voice echoed from the darkness. "You cannot contain it. You will join us." I jumped to my feet, heart racing. The figure was near, a manifestation of darkness creeping closer. "No!" I shouted, anger fueling my voice. "I won't give in." I pressed the symbols to my chest, grounding myself. But pain shot through me, and I staggered. "Clara!" I cried out again. And this time, the cave responded. From a corner, I heard a rustling. I turned, hoping against hope. "Clara?" The rustling grew louder, and I braced myself. A figure emerged from the shadows, stumbling, but it was not her. It was a man, disheveled and wild-eyed. He looked at me, panic on his face. "You shouldn't be here," he shouted, darting back, fear evident in his voice. "Where's Clara?" I pressed, moving closer. His expression shifted from fear to realization. "You don't know? The shadows, they take you. You must leave." "What do you mean? I need to find her." "Don't you understand?" he pleaded. "Everyone is lost to the darkness. You can't save her." The shadows laughed, a chilling sound wrapping around us. I felt the symbols in my grasp tremble. "I won't give up," I said defiantly. But doubt began to gnaw at me. What if Clara was lost? What if I was too late? I had to find her. Focusing on the symbols again, the flickers of light danced in my peripheral vision, almost teasingly. There had to be a way to bring that energy back. And it was then I heard it. A voice whispering my name, echoing
through the cavern. "Clara?" I called, hope igniting. I could sense her nearby, trapped within the shadows. The man's warning rang in my ears, but I couldn't turn back now. I was going to find her. With resolve, I stepped deeper into the darkness, determined to uncover the truth and what lay ahead. The darkness pressed closer as I moved into the cave, the dim flicker of light guiding my way. I clutched the symbols tightly, their chill against my skin, a reminder of the power I hoped to wield. The voice I had heard felt closer now, wrapping around me like an embrace. "Clara!" I called again, desperation creeping into my voice. No answer, just the echo of my plea. I took a deep breath, pulling myself together. I couldn't let fear stop me. The man watched me with wide eyes, shifting restlessly. "You shouldn't," he started, but I cut him off. "I have to," I insisted. "She's in danger." I was shocked to feel my own confidence. Maybe I did have the strength to confront the shadows. But he shook his head, a wild look in his eyes. "You'll regret it. They will consume you first. Trust me." His warning fell heavy in the air, and I hesitated. What did he know that I didn't? But that spark of hope inside me kept pushing forward. I could feel Clara close by, and I couldn't abandon her. I took another step forward, the symbols illuminated by a flicker of light, almost urging me on. Without notice, the cave trembled, the ground shifting beneath us. The shadows hissed, swirling in a furious spiral, and I stumbled back. The man caught me, panic surfacing once more. "We have to go, now!" He pointed toward the cave entrance, where the shadows seemed to pulse and retreat. "No!" I shouted, my resolve hardening. "We can't leave her!" I didn't even know how I knew she was there, just that I could feel her essence beckoning me. "Clara!" I cried again, my voice echoing in the vast darkness. I didn't wait for a response. I pressed forward, driven by that mysterious connection. Suddenly, the shadows shifted violently, forming shapes that loomed and flickered around me. I could have sworn I saw Clara's face among them, pleading, "Help me!" "Clara!" The fear broadened in my chest, and I pressed the symbols against my heart, willing them to shine as they once had. "Release her!" A surge of energy coursed through me, and the symbols began to glow a brilliant blue. The man gasped, but I didn't look at him. I focused hard, remembering the warmth, the vibrancy. Waves of power rushed from the symbols, igniting the shadows in bright bursts of color. But as the shadows shrieked in agony, they morphed into a massive figure, darker and larger than anything I had seen before. It towered over me, its form swirling and shifting like a monstrous shadow. "Foolish child," it boomed, its voice resonating through the vast darkness. "You cannot unlock that which is sealed away." I staggered back as fear washed over me, threatening to overwhelm. "Let her go!" I shouted, my voice shaking. But the figure only laughed, and the shadows encircled me, more menacing than ever. "You will become one with the darkness, just like her." And that's when I felt it, Clara's presence fading. My heart raced as I realized the depth of the danger. The urgency to save her surged through me. I had to act. Before I even knew what I was doing, I held the symbols aloft, channeling every ounce of strength I could muster. "I'll fight for her!" I screamed, willing the symbols to burn even brighter. But the shadows seemed to thicken, and I felt myself getting pulled into the darkness. My strength wavered for a moment, doubt flooding my mind. Then everything went dark. I woke again, but this time the darkness felt different,
less suffocating, more like a blanket wrapped around me. As I blinked into the abyss, I realized I wasn't alone. Shadows danced at the edge of my vision, a familiar whisper calling my name. Eric. Heart pounding, I pulled myself up from the ground. The chilling silence around me was almost comforting, a stark contrast to the chaos I had just experienced. I steadied my breath, straining to hear any signs of Clara or my teammates. Was I still trapped in that eerie cave, or had I been taken somewhere else entirely? Then, like a flame igniting in my mind, I remembered the symbols. They had been my tether, my connection to the light that drove back the shadows. I groped in the dark, pulling my fingers along the dusty floor. They fell on the cold, smooth edges of the glowing symbols, more vibrant than before, as if waiting for me to awaken them once again. "Clara!" I shouted again, the sound echoing hollowly in the void. I felt a surge of confidence ripple through me. I had fought back before. I could do it again. The energy hummed beneath my skin, and the shadows shied away, sensing my resolve. With determination, I assembled the symbols in front of me, their light growing brighter with each movement. In my mind, I urged them to connect, to wrap around the darkness. If Clara was nearby, she could sense my call. "Clara, I'm coming!" I shouted, raising the symbols high. The shadows hissed, retreating further, as if aware of their impending defeat. For the first time since I had arrived at the base, I felt a slight edge over the darkness. But doubt crept in. Where was Clara? Would she even be there when I managed to confront the darkness? Was she lost forever? The fear disguised as certainty began to creep back in, threatening to unravel me. "Focus, Eric. You can do this," I reminded myself. I felt the symbols blush warmly, and in that moment, I remembered. Memory, connection, determination. I had to fight off the shadows.
Not just for her, but for everyone who had vanished before. With a roar of defiance, I thrust the glowing symbols toward the encroaching darkness. "Release the light!" The words poured from me as if I had become a vessel for something greater. The air vibrated with ancient energy, and the symbols began to pulse, illuminating the cave with a brightness I hadn't known I possessed. The shadows shrieked and convulsed at the sudden light flooding the space. I glimpsed distorted faces among the twisting dark. Was that Clara? No time to falter. With the symbols blazing, I directed the energy through the shadows, forcing it back, another step, and another, pushing away the cold grasp threatening to ensnare me. "Clara!" It was her voice, faint but clear over the cacophony of darkness. Hope surged within me. I reached for her, mind racing to pull her out of this suffocating grip. "Stay close, I'm breaking through." The shadows recoiled as I forged ahead, the weight of fear lifting, light spilling from my hands. And then I saw her, Clara's outline, faintly shimmering, almost fading, trapped at the edge of shadows. "Eric!" she cried, stretching her hand toward me, hope radiating in her eyes. "You found me! Hold on!" I pushed forward, driving the energy from the symbols into the amorphous darkness. The shadows howled, a sound like suffering souls, but I was relentless. Together we could break free. I reached Clara's hand, our fingers brushing against one another. "We can do this, together!" I shouted over the tumult. In that moment of shared belief, the symbols exploded with brilliance, casting the shadows back like waves retreating. Together we pulled ourselves from the darkness, an invisible tether holding us fast. The wilderness around burst into view, the bright light outside, the cold mountain air rushing at us, the echo of the shadows waning with every step forward. And just like that, we stumbled out of the cave. I blinked against the harsh daylight, my heart still racing and my breath heavy. I turned to find Clara at my side, wide-eyed and alive.
We stood together, uncertainty gnawing at the edges of our victory. I could sense shadows lurking at the corners of my vision, an unsettling reminder of the darkness that still existed. "What was that place?" Clara whispered, her voice shaking. "I don't know," I admitted quietly, still trying to grasp the reality we'd just escaped. But it felt like we weren't meant to leave. The whisper of fear lingered between us. If I'd learned anything from the base, it was that the darkness was an insidious force, one that plagued us long after our escape. Would we be safe? Would those rules still haunt us? And as we turned to face our doubts, questions echoed in the back of my mind. I felt unsettled, wondering if the shadows would follow us home, or if we had truly severed their grasp. For now, the brightness felt liberating, grounding us in a newfound sense
of survival. But something told me the whispers would call again, beckoning us to revisit paths best left untraveled. I needed to know the truth, even if it meant stepping back into that wilderness once more. Each day blurred into another, filled with uncertainty and lingering darkness, but we'd stared it down together, a flicker of light in the vast unknown, yet wondering when the shadows might strike again.